Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to the listening public, the viewing public as well, since many are viewing on YouTube and on Facebook. Welcome to another edition of On the Mark. To all of our friends and family at home, those in St. Kitts, those in Nevis, those across the Caribbean, Sunshine City, St. Martin, those in Rock City, St. Thomas, the St. Croix, St. John's, Virgin Gorda, Anegada, Tortola, wherever you are. Good evening to you, friends and family in Statia, Saba, of course, those who are in Antigua and Barbuda and Montserrat. We have listenership all across the Caribbean, and we say good evening to you. To all of our students at the University of the West Indies, those in Barbados, those in Trinidad, those in Jamaica, to all of our friends and family in Guyana, good evening to all of you. And, of course, we have to remember our friends who are now in the cold, those in Canada and the United States of America, and those in the United Kingdom. Wherever you may be this evening, I wish you a good evening. My name is Mark Brantley, and I'm the host of this show tonight. Welcome to another edition of On the Mark. We have a lot of information to get through tonight, but I start on a very sad note. The island has been rocked by the news that we have lost our beloved former Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Joseph Liebert. Mr. Liebert was well known here in the Division community. He had served in the police force for a very long time. In fact, he created history by becoming the first serving police officer to have attained a bachelor's degree. Mr. Liebert was incredibly valuable human being in this community. He has done excellent work as a police officer, and even afterwards. He was a chairperson of the Nevis Air and Seaports Authority, and he was appointed to that position by me, and he has performed incredibly well in that position, keeping that institution going even through its darkest days during COVID. He was also instrumental in the peace program that happened here in Nevis, as many youngsters turned to him for advice and guidance, knowing that they could trust him. I last spoke to Mr. Liebert just the day before he passed, and whilst I knew he was in the United States getting medical attention, there was never any hint that it would be the last time. And I would want to use this opportunity just to thank his family for lending him to us all these years, for the excellent work that he would have done. I think the best memory we could have of anyone is the level to which they served and served others. And Mr. Joseph Liebert would have served us all well. I have seen the tributes and the accolades that have come from the police, from NASPA, from various agencies, and I wanted to add my voice. I have, of course, spoken privately, but I would want to also say publicly that Nevis has lost one of its finest sons, and that his contribution will live long after him. And so we say farewell to our dear friend and brother, Joseph Liebert, and we say to his family who are left to mourn, particularly his sons that survive him, and his siblings, that we extend our deepest condolences to you all, the entire family. We know it's a large family of in-laws and even grandchildren, and so we really want to extend our condolences to one and all from all of us here at Von Radio. May the prayers of all of us give you comfort in this your darkest hour. And if it's any comfort to you, please know that in time and over time, the pain does get a little less. And so we ask that you pray for the Liebert family, that you keep them in your thoughts, and that you lend a helping hand where you can, recognizing that ultimately we are all one people, we are all one family. We are all Nevisians and Kittitians, and as such, we must look out for each other and be, as I like to say, our brother's keeper and our sister's helper. And so I say farewell to my friend, Libby. He has contributed, and may his contribution long be remembered. It, of course, is always a sad situation when people die. The Bible tells us that life is but a vapor, and yet sometimes we live our lives as if we are guaranteed long life, as if we cannot die, as if we are invincible. And so I believe that these events, as they happen, and the passing of great people like Mr. Liebert would confirm that life is fleeting. It used to be, they say, you're here today and gone tomorrow. Now I'm hearing them say you're here today and gone today. You're here 1 hour and gone the next. No one knows when their time will come. And so we thank God for all of his mercies. We thank God for giving us Liberd and for his service over the years. And we are to hope that his family will be comforted knowing that he served Nevis and St. Kitts, and he served us well. So farewell, my friend. I'm not sure about the funeral arrangements, but whenever they come, I pray that God will give me the strength and the opportunity to be there to say my final farewell. But I hope the family understands that Liberd served, and he served well. Ladies and gentlemen, I move from that sad note to a note of commendation. I was afforded the opportunity to visit in Hickman's village, the home of a lady that I did not know. I must confess that I was meeting for the first time with Violet Movin, and Mrs. Movin was there. I was invited by my dear friend Joyce Movin, and it's ironic sometimes that I knew Joyce well but did not know her mom. But she was such a lovely, lovely presence, Mrs. Movin. And she received me, and Joyce said, "You know who this is?" And she said, "Don't forward with me, that's the premier." And it really warmed my heart. She celebrated her 80th birthday just a few days ago, and I was afforded the opportunity to be there along with the Honorable Eric Evelyn, our Deputy Premier, the Honorable Spencer Brand, and the Honorable General Nisbet. And we had a wonderful time. I apologize I couldn't stay, but nevertheless I was pleased to be there. And if you're listening, Miss Movin, I wanted to say a happy birthday to you publicly, and to thank your daughter Joyce for inviting me, and to thank all of your children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. There were 4 generations present who came to celebrate this momentous day. One of the things I took away from all that was said in the brief ceremony that was held was that you instilled in your children the principles of hard work, of working for what they wanted, of being honest, and earning and living by the sweat of their brows. We are told that by the sweat of our brows we shall eat bread. There are too many of us who want to eat bread but don't want to sweat. We don't want our brows to sweat at all, but we want to eat not just bread but the best bread. It doesn't work that way. And I want to thank people like Mrs. Movin for the principles that they instill. She told me she had 5 children, all girls, and all of them have done well because of those principles instilled in them. And so I was grateful to be there. And Mrs. Movin, if you are not listening, I hope somebody will tell you that I'm wishing you a happy birthday yet again. For all of those who might be celebrating an anniversary or birthday, I say happy anniversary, happy birthday. To those who might have some tragedy in their lives, whether it's the ultimate tragedy of a death in the family, I extend my condolences to you. And certainly for those of you who might be suffering in some way, I also ask God for God's mercies upon you, that you may recover quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, this is On the Mark. We have a lot of ground to cover today, and I am hopeful that we will hear from you when we open the lines. I keep saying today, it's tonight. We have a lot of ground to cover this evening, and I would like to hear from you certainly when our lines open, that you will flood the studio with your calls. Now let me say this, that tomorrow there will be a significant press conference being hosted by the Honorable Eric Evelyn, our Deputy Premier and Minister of Culture. He will be speaking about tourism. He will also be speaking about Culturama, and you might wonder, why is Eric Evelyn speaking about tourism? Well, he will explain everything tomorrow. I don't want to say too much, but they have some very exciting programs tomorrow, and so the Ministry of Tourism and the Nevis Tourism Authority will be there. But this is the Deputy Premier show. He's put in some very exciting plans in place for Culturama 50 as we celebrate 50 years of Culturama this year. And we've decided as a government that we will invite all Nevisians and Kittitians abroad to come home and to experience Culturama. And come home, have your family reunions, come home and bring your friends with you. We want you to come home and fill up the villages. Come back to Cox and Coal come back to Hanley's Road, come back to Zion and Hickman's, come back to Butlers and Brickhill. Fill up the villages. Come home and be here and be a part. For anything to have survived for 50 years and thrived for 50 years, it's truly amazing. And this wasn't handed to us. Culturama emanated from us. It was created by us. And so in every sense, we are celebrating something that is quintessentially Nivision and something that has lasted for 50 years. And so for those who were there at the start back in 1974 and who, some of whom are still with us, we say thank you, because you have contributed immensely. So I'm hopeful that people like my dear friend Erms, I don't know if she'll be happy me calling her Erms, but Irma Johnson, who taught me in school and was one of my favorite teachers, still one of my favorite persons to this day. If you're listening, we're expecting that people like yourself and others will be honored and celebrated for your contribution to culture and for bringing us thus far. And so I'm inviting all of you out there, if you have not yet made plans, please make plans. We know that there are some who have had some difficulties in terms of flights, particularly from St. Croix, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, from St. Martin, and we are saying to you that we are moving heaven and earth to put things in place. We want you to be able to come home in a seamless way. And of course, we invited our brothers and sisters from St. Kitts, many of whom trace their roots to Nevis. For those of you in St. Paul's, those of you in Keon, those of you who are in Newtown, right in Bastia, many of you trace your roots right here to the island of Nevis. And so we ask you to come home, because some of you are a generation or two removed, and I am always surprised when I hear my Kittitian brothers and sisters say they've never been to Nevis. Well, this is your chance. Come over. And we know, of course, that the bands are going to be over here, the bands are going to be on the road, and ain't no jamming as sweet as when Kittitians in the jam. You know how that goes. That is their thing. They are great at it. The people of Nevis, I expect to come out from all the 5 parishes and all the villages, from every hamlet, every village, every city that we have. I want you out. Whether you come from Gingerland City or Brownhill City or Charlestown City, I want you out. I want you to come out and enjoy the festivities. And we are expecting that we will all be on our very best behavior. So, the Honorable Eric Evelyn is going to have a lot to say tomorrow. I'm told he's going to have some major announcements to make. And I believe that the public will be pleased with what they're hearing in terms of what he will have to say tomorrow. I will leave that there because I don't want to let anything out of the bag. I ask people to tune in. The press conference will be at the Malcolm Guichard Recreational Park tomorrow at 10 a.m. And the Honorable Eric Evelyn will lead that effort. And so we look forward very much to hearing what he has to say. For my part, I'm pleased to announce that tomorrow, Thursday, I resume my one-on-ones. And my one-on-ones are intended to be an opportunity for persons who want to see me to be able to just drop in and have a chat, bring their issues if they are, bring their advice, and some bring their prayers too. I'm really happy that people come out and see me on a Thursday. I used to do them every Thursday, but it sometimes gets a bit difficult, and so this is the first one I'm doing this year, but I'll hope that I can reinstitute them at more regular intervals. So tomorrow we're going to have our one-on-ones. I ask people who may want to come in, just ring the office and let my assistant know that you want to come in, and we'll try to facilitate you. It is all about making government accessible, being your server-in-chief. I want to be able to serve, and I can't serve unless I'm also being able to listen, unless I create the environment where we can have a conversation and I can understand from you what's happening. So we're doing it in the office. Some who don't want to come to the office, that's okay too, because you will see me as I move around from time to time. As I move to the various villages and communities, you see me at the shops, you see me at the bars, you see me in the various communities, you see me sometimes on your doorstep. I am always there trying to engage. I'm engaging on social media in every which way. I try to engage to keep my finger on the pulse, to find out how I can do what I'm doing better and how I can ensure that those of you whom I serve, the people of Nevis, that you have the best opportunity and a better life. That is why you elected me and the CCM, and that is what we're seeking to achieve. And so we look forward certainly to that. I can announce, because it has already been announced, that we have started our Island Enhancement Initiative. This was something we spoke about in our budget discussions this year, for this year. And what we're doing is we're inviting Nevisians and those who are resident here on the island to, as we say in colloquial terms, spruce up their surroundings. So if you want to paint your home, if you want to fence your home, if you want to perhaps change some windows, you want to change some doors, exterior doors and windows, if you want to do your driveway, if you want to have some solar lamps or some landscape lighting, whatever you want to do to improve. And we're especially hopeful that those commercial buildings in Charlestown, that the owners will take the opportunity to lift their buildings. We want it all done because we expect thousands of people to descend on Nevis for Culturama 50. And what a beautiful sight it would be if all of us, government and community alike, were to initiate efforts to beautify, to lift, to spruce up, as I'm saying, their premises. And so, as an incentive, the Cabinet has taken a decision that on all your products, all your materials for that purpose, you will be allowed to have it duty-free, and we also will exempt the customs service charge. You will, however, have to pay the VAT, but that is the only imposition would be the VAT. So if you are thinking about painting your home or thinking about painting your building, if you're in Charlestown, this is a good time. If you're thinking about improvements to your home which have an aesthetic nature, I want to be clear, because some people are already calling me and say they want to do interior renovations, they want to add on a room. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the aesthetics of your home. So if you want to change windows, if you want to change doors, external doors and windows, if you want to put up fencing, if you want to paint, that's what we're talking about. If you want to effect repairs to the exterior of the premises, then we're inviting you to come in and to have a conversation. The forms, there's a short form to be filled out that would be at the Ministry of Finance right there in Charlestown. And so I've been getting a lot of calls. People are very excited about this, and we're hopeful that people will take advantage of this opportunity. Now, it's a short period of time. The opportunity runs only up until July. And the reason for that is, as I said, we want people to do what they're doing in the first 6 months of this year so that we have a Nevis that is shiny, that is at its very best when people come to see us. You know, when you have guests or your friends and family are coming from overseas, what you do? You try to make sure the yard looks good and the premises look good, because you want them to come to a place that is beautiful. And so we're encouraging our people to take advantage. This is yet another innovation from this CCM-led government. I want to thank my colleagues in Cabinet. I want to thank P.S. Collindo and his team for the advice that they give on matters such as this, and thank my colleagues for seeing the wisdom of implementing this. You will hear more about it from the Honorable Eric Evelyn tomorrow, because we've wrapped it with Culturama, because it's Culturama 50. But certainly we look forward to this type of fiscal incentive designed by our Ministry of Finance to benefit our people. And so I ask for you to go out, and for those of you who might have been thinking this is a huge savings for you, and so take advantage of it. I don't want anybody calling me in September and October and tell me, oh, the thing's still going. It's a short term. The intention is that you invest in beautifying your property, and you do so now with the assistance of the government. So all of you in Cherry Gardens, all of you in Maddens and the various housing developments, wherever you may be in Bath, Brownhill, if you want an opportunity to uplift your premises, this is your chance to get your duty off and to get your customs service charge off. The only thing you'll be required to pay is VAT. And so I hope that Hosford's and TDC and Island Tires and all the suppliers, that they will do a robust business. And we're encouraging you to buy local. We always encourage you to do that. But if you bring anything from overseas, you're going to get the same benefit. So I just want you to know that this is an idea, an innovation to allow you, the people of Nevis, to have an opportunity to lift your premises, to improve your surroundings. And I want to see people paint up. I want to see the place looking good. That is the intention. As a government, we'll be doing a lot of work on the island. We'll be doing work in and around Charlestown to again lift the island, to make sure that Nevis is in pristine condition for us who live here, but also for the benefit of those who are coming. And so we look forward very much to really holding hands one with each other and partnering for Culturama 50. We already are hearing that there's a large group coming out of the UK. When they spoke to me just a few weeks ago, they indicated that they expected about 50 persons coming out of the UK. The last report we had, that was now up to nearly 100. And so we expect that people are going to come home. Again, you're going to hear much more about it tomorrow, and some exciting announcements coming from the Honorable Eric Evelyn, our Deputy Premier. And so please tune in tomorrow to get the benefit of that. I will leave that, say no more there, and allow you to get the benefit, God willing, of that conversation tomorrow at that press conference, 10 a.m. at the Malcolm Gishard Recreational Park. The Honorable Eric Evelyn and the teams from Tourism, Nevis Tourism Authority, Ministry of Tourism, and of course the Culturama Secretariat. I believe they will all be there with some exciting information and news, and again, more innovations that you'll hear about tomorrow as we get ready. You see, this is January, and we're already talking about Culturama, which happens at the end of July, because we want to get ready. We're taking in front, as they say. We want to get ready, and so I invite one and all to be a part of that tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, on Monday of this week, we had a very historic event on the island of Nevis, where the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Terence Drew, brought over his cabinet, and it was the entire cabinet. I think only 2 members were missing because of travel. They were not here. But the other members came, and they met with our cabinet, and we too had our entire cabinet, save for our legal advisor, who has had to travel. And incidentally, I hope she doesn't mind me saying so, but she has lost her mom, and I would want to publicly extend my deepest condolences to her and her entire family, to her children, Hashim, my very good friend, and Hadia, and of course to my brother Tony, her husband. They've lost her mom. I know her mom was ailing for some time, and so I would want to extend my deep condolences to them. As I said, I've done this privately, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying so publicly. But Helen, if you're listening, or I hope somebody will say, our prayers are with you at this difficult time. So she was absent. She could not be there. Incidentally, I later learned that the mother-in-law of our Attorney General, Garth Wilkin, that she too has passed, and so I extend my condolences to Garth and his wife and their family as well. And so those sad circumstances prevented the Attorney General and the legal advisor from being present. But this meeting was quite historic, because it was the first time that Prime Minister Drew had come to Nevis in that way since he has become Prime Minister. And he reached out, and we have put in place a mechanism for dialogue. And so the Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Marcus Natta, of the Federal Cabinet, is in steady contact with the Cabinet Secretary of the Nevis Island Cabinet, who, of course, is Mr. Stedman Truss. And through that mechanism, the Prime Minister asked if we could institutionalize meetings, joint cabinet meetings. And so Monday marked the first of such meetings, and I think it was symbolic that the Prime Minister wanted to have the first meeting in Nevis. And so we had that meeting in Nevis. I want to thank the manager, Mr. Billy Cueto, at Four Seasons, and his team, because they facilitated that meeting there, and we are very grateful to them. We know it was difficult because the hotel has been full over these past weeks, and so we are thankful to them for the hospitality, as always, that they provide. And we had an excellent meeting. I think the meeting was frank, it was fruitful, and what it did for me was that it created another opportunity for dialogue. It is said that when people are talking to each other, it is the best way that they can resolve any issues that might arise. It is the best way to build consensus. It's the best way to ensure that they're not misunderstood. There has to be a mechanism for communication. And that is what we sought to do. And we then left our joint cabinet meeting, and we journeyed over to the parish of St. James, where there has been a project happening there quietly. We have not made a lot of noise about it, but there's a project there by some foreign investors who have come and have created what they're calling Saras. There are a number of units there, rental units, and they've also now created a restaurant where they're serving Korean food. And as I went there, I was quite pleased to hear them say that they have a staff already of over 18 individuals. That was music to my ears, because I'm all about employment on the island. But we decided to go there to try this Korean restaurant. It's called Calypso, and we had a wonderful time. I believe that everybody was very pleased with the quality of the food. I want to thank the manager, Leo, and his team. I think they did an excellent job, and we were quite pleased at what the hospitality that we received and the quality of the food that we received. We recognize that it was a large cohort of individuals, but I think we had a good time. And so the Monday allowed us an opportunity to commix and commingle, if I can borrow some phraseology from the preacher that I've always listened to with rapt attention, we were able, and of course that preacher is Father Percival. He always talks about people commixing and commingling, and I've always, I can't say I stole it, because that would be inappropriate. A preacher wouldn't want to think of me as a thief, so I borrowed it, that terminology, because he's the only person I've ever heard with it. But I always love to use it, and so we were able to commix and commingle. We did so in the formal setting of a cabinet, and then we also did so in a less formal setting at lunch, and I think we had a really good time. The camaraderie was really good. We were able to discuss matters, and I think that is what our people are looking for. You know, I have come under intense criticisms for trying to have a relationship with the Prime Minister and the federal government. It is quite strange that so many have insisted that we be at war with each other. And I recall when we first met, Prime Minister Drew and I did not know Prime Minister Drew prior to the election. When I say that, I had seen him, I knew who he was. I believe that on one or two occasions we had said hello, but I don't think we'd ever had a conversation. But when he became Prime Minister, he received me very early, and we both committed to seeing what we could do to ensure that we work together to advance the interests of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I've been at this now for some time. I reflected recently that I have now been a politician. I had promised my wife no more than 10 years, but it has now turned into some 18 years this year. So I've been there for some time. I think I can now consider myself a senior politician. And with age comes wisdom, we hope. And I have recognized with every passing day that my commitment that brought me into politics, to the service of people, is that same commitment. That's the same fire that burns within me. And you must, as part of that, do what is right. But you also must seek to cultivate relationships where possible to advance the interests of the people that you serve. And what I liked about the engagement, and have liked about the engagements thus far with Dr. Terence Drew as our Prime Minister, I don't detect any ego, any need to be the boss, any one-upmanship. I detect respect. It's given, it's received, and a genuine willingness to talk. He and I don't always agree. It is not that he says, well, I want to go left, and I say, well, I don't think left is the best way to go. At the end of the day, he's the Prime Minister. I respect that. But the ability to have that conversation is important. And there have been occasions when I believe that with the experience that I have in the Parliament, having been in government, both nationally and locally, that there is sometimes an opportunity to pass on a little information or a little suggestion. And where that is taken on board, I'm grateful. Where it is not, that is the prerogative of the Prime Minister to do as he sees fit, because he is the person leading the country. And so there are many people out there who may not like it, many people who are unhappy about it, and that's okay. There will be another election whenever that comes, and you'll have an opportunity to vote, and to vote for the person of your choice. That is why we live in something called a democracy. A lot of people claim they want democracy, but they don't actually want what comes with democracy. Because when they say they want democracy, they mean to say they want everybody to think like them. They want everybody to vote for their party, their choice. And when that doesn't happen, they respond by vitriol. They respond by saying that the people stupid, that this one thief and that one bad, and who get bribe and who... They respond in the worst ways. Because you see, they pay lip service to democracy. If we truly believe in democracy, we should understand that people have a right to vote, and people will vote for who they want. And once those votes are counted, once there's no allegation of impropriety, it means therefore that we must respect the will of the people. Because if you don't respect the will of the people, then you don't really want democracy. You want something else. But it's not called democracy. And that is why I came to this radio station and I voiced the alarm. I sounded the alarm that NRP and its operatives were having radio shows here in Nevis where they were calling for violence against me and against the government that I lead. I sounded the alarm. I played the clips right here on Von Radio, where some foolish fellow called Tulu could go on the radio to say that he was talking to somebody about something that I said in the federal parliament, and he said to that person, people like that need to be shot. Those were his words, not mine. And then some other buffoon, I'm told, who lives in the States, called in a program that had Hensley Daniel on it, the former deputy premier, Carlisle Powell, a former minister, and Kelvin Daly, a former failed politician. They had all three on that radio station. And this chap called in to say that he's calling for revolution. And what does he need? Does he need people or does he need guns? Because you see, the people of Nevis rejected the NRP yet again in the elections of 2022. They rejected them in August in the federal election. They lost all 3 seats. They rejected them again in December in the local elections and said that we prefer the Concerned Citizens Movement and the leadership of Mark Brantley. Now, if you truly believe in democracy, you had your opportunity to make your case. And the people said, not you. So why are you now calling for revolution? Why are you calling for violence and saying people should be shot? What you need to do is, if you truly believe in democracy, you go back. You need to look at both your message and, most importantly, your messengers. Because NRP has some very angry messengers. Some very angry messengers. Fellows who it appears are frothing at the mouth. Vitriolic, bitter like gall. Bitter like tomfish. Bitter. And you ask yourself the question, is it that you need to be on the government payroll so badly that this bitterness is what you bring? And you think Nevis people don't detect that bitterness? So many people tell me they're turned off from the politics because the level of vitriol they can't deal with. I've been a politician for some time. We understand there's the cut and thrust. We understand there's the picong and the back and forth. But there's a certain threshold, I feel, when you start to talk about shooting people and you start to talk about revolution and you need guns, that you're crossing now into uncharted territories insofar as our politics is concerned. And yet they say that they want democracy and that they're in favor of democracy. Well, you can't hold fire and water in the same hand. You must make up your mind whether you are in fact in favor of democracy. And if you are, then once the people have spoken in an election, their voice is the voice of God. And unless you have evidence of impropriety, and there is none, and has been none, then the people have spoken, and the people spoke eloquently in 2022. Not just once, but twice. And you must therefore look and say, well, what is the problem? Why is it that NRP has not been able to win an election? They lost in 1992. You hear how far back I gone? 1992. Till now is 32 years. They lost in 1992. They lost in 1993. They lost in 1995. They They lost in 1997. They lost in 2000. They lost in 2001. They lost in 2004. And then in 2006, they won an election. And I'm not even going to get into all that happened during that election. But let's just say there was the 80-acre election. You all remember it? When they went the length and breadth of the country and maligned Malcolm Gishard. So he thief government land. He sell land to his brother. And our people swallowed it hook, line and sinker. In truth, Malcolm never sold one scrap of land because the land was never government land. You hear what I tell you? The land was never government land. The land was bought from a private landowner. But yet they built this case. And they went all around the length and breadth. Maligned and vilified and attacked Malcolm. And then they won the election. And they got into office. Joseph Parry as Premier. Elhansville Hector as Minister. Hensley Daniel as Minister. Carlisle Powell as Junior Minister. And what the other joker fella there? Can't remember his name now. He was so insignificant. But somebody else who came in again as a junior. And the reality is that their performance was abysmal. Let's face it. Their performance was abysmal. The things that that government did then, people say you shouldn't look back, but sometimes you have to, because people today are still suffering from some of those things that were done. The Guyanese who were picked up and deported from Nevis for no reason other than they said that the Guyanese were supporting CCM. And some of the people, when they were deported to Ghana, they went and put something in the immigration system which is reserved for terrorists and people who are persona non grata, to block those people from ever coming back to the island of Nevis. You hear what I tell you? They can't even come to visit their relatives or their friends because the NRP blocked them for life from coming back here. What crime did they commit? Some of them might have overstayed. Some of them did nothing wrong, except they were said to support CCM. When in 2011 they went up to Cane Garden and removed nearly everybody in Cane Garden from the voters list. Why they did that? Because Cane Garden is Guyanese and they said the Guyanese supported CCM. Those are the facts. I'm not making that up. Documented facts. When the young lady went over there to the Ivor Walters Primary School to cast her vote, she was brought to the polling station by an NRP operative, dropped her off. And when she went in the booth, my poll worker heard the phone click as the camera, she took the picture. And the picture was a vote for Hensley Daniel, taken by that young lady in the booth where she went to vote. It is my poll agent who heard and detected and demanded that the matter be looked into, and then they found the phone. The police got involved. When they held the lady called out for the NRP operative that had brought her to the polls. And he said, "Don't call me, I know you're not." And that poor woman was taken away to jail and then immediately deported and sent back to Guyana. And you know why she was taking the photo of her vote? They told her that that was the only way that she could get a work permit, was for her to prove that she voted for the NRP in that election. You all think I'm making these things up? I'm not. I'm not. That legacy is still here today. There were people here on this island who, in order to get a work permit, they had to go to a relative of one of the ministers or that same operative who dropped that lady to the polls that day. And when they went, if a work permit was $2,000, they charged them $4,000. And even sometimes when the poor people paid that $4,000, when the thing came out, they held their passport. You had people working here in Nevis who could not even have the dignity of having their passport in their own possession. Their passport was being held by these people. This is not me making something up. And I went out and I spoke about it because I said, my father, of blessed memory, lived in foreign lands for nearly all of his life. And all of us on this island have somebody who lives in foreign lands. That is why we can speak of a homecoming and inviting our people to come home, because we anticipate thousands will come. Because when you go St. Martin, you must find Nevis people. Sabre, Statia, Anguilla, Tortola, Virgin Gorda. If you go St. John's, it's not just Nevis people, it's Brown Hill people. You go St. Thomas, Rock City, you go St. Croix. Miss son, you know how many of us in St. Croix, Miss son? A lot of us down there. You leave, you go up to New York. You can't take the number 2 train going up in the Bronx and run into somebody from Nevis. You can't. Brooklyn, Queens. You go upstate. We have divisions. When you go Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham, Leicester, London, people from Nevis are everywhere in this world. And yet you had people here stirring up hatred against those who have come to seek a better life here in Nevis, forgetting that nearly all of their family, I said so publicly because it was true. I said to Hensley, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Because how could you be a part of a government victimizing non-nationals in Nevis when all of your family except one were living abroad? All. How do you justify that? Because which of us here would like to hear that our relatives in New York, in St. Martin, in Anguilla are being rounded up, deported, something put in the immigration system never to return, treated like common criminals for what? Because they say the people supported CCM. They say we must not look back, but sometimes you need to. There are people right now in Nugent Heights and those areas who cannot get title for the lands that they've already paid for. A young man called me recently. He said he's now in a position he wants to build a home for his family. But guess what? The planning department is telling him you can't build no home because you don't have no title. The bank is telling him, well, we can't lend you no money, you can't get a mortgage because you don't have a title. Because what happened? The CCM acquired Pinney's estate under the leadership of Vance Emery. As a government, acquired Pinney's estate. They borrowed $10 million US to do that acquisition. And they took the $10 million because they turned around and they sold 600 acres to a company called Newfound. For some, I believe it was 21.5 million US. So they bought the land for 10, they turn around and sell 600 acres out of it for 21.5 million US. And when they got paid the first tranche of the 21.5 million US, they put it down in Scotia Bank in a special account. And that account had special instructions that it should be there to pay back the people in Trinidad that we borrowed the $10 million from. You hear me? CCM lost the government in 2006. NRP got in 2006. And by the time NRP finally left office, after 5 years and 18 null and void months, the 10 million US that was at Scotia, poof, that gone. They had cut up the lands at Nugent's that were left and sold off the lands to Nivigans who to this day can't get their title I will explain why. Because while they take out the 10 million US, poof, while they sold the lands and take money from Nivisions for those lands, and while they got the balance of the money from Newfound, they never paid the bank in Trinidad 1 red cent towards paying off the debt. So, the bank in Trinidad, the lending institution in Trinidad, had a mortgage on the lands. And if you know how lands work, if you have a mortgage, you'll put on what is called a caveat. And once the caveat is there, no transfers could occur. And so if you're paying, what would happen is as you pay, you sell 2 lots, 3 lots, you pay Trinidad their money, and then they lift the caveat. Those 3 people get their title, then they put back on the caveat. You sell another 2, 3, 5, 10 lots, they lift, put back on, so the people could get their title. But because NRP was not paying Trinidad, the people say, you know what, we're not lifting no caveat to allow anyone to get any title until we get all of our money. When we got back into government in 2013, we started to pay Trinidad. And to this day, the Nevis Housing and Land Development Corporation every month is paying Trinidad. And they continue to say that they have no confidence in Nevis because of what happened, and they want all their money before those persons who have bought in Nugent Heights and those areas there in Pinnis can get their title. And you reflect and think of how many young people bought land down there who now want to build. They got no title they could show planning to get planning permission. They got no title they could show the bank to get a mortgage. So when sometimes we talk about decisions and people say don't look back, you have to look back, because that is something that is haunting people to this day. The NRP went ahead and acquired, I believe my memory serves me right, 13 pieces of property here on the island of Nevis. 13. They acquired land in Jessops. They acquired land in Cohoons. They acquired land up here at the top of Government Road. They acquired West Haven, the old hotel property there at the old Hospital Road. All around the island they acquired. Now the law gives the government the right to acquire property. Once it's for public purpose, the law says you can acquire it. But it also puts the burden on the government to pay compensation for that property. Put differently, you can't just go and take a man's land. You must take it if you're taking it for public purpose, and you have a duty to pay market value for that land. Well, the NRP acquired 13 different properties and pieces of land. They paid for none. Not 1 red cent did they pay. And that is why to this day, the taxpayers and people of Nevis owe somewhere now approaching, I believe the last number I saw, something like nearly 20 million EC dollars for West Haven and all abandoned, destroyed property. You see it down there overgrown. You say, why is nothing being done with it? It's an eyesore. I hear all of those comments. But how are you going to proceed with West Haven without making sure that the Nisbet family and the others are paid? And the amounts are colossal for what is barely 2 acres of land and abandoned. The only thing you can do down there is knock down those properties. What else are you going to do with them? That's the legacy that we are still dealing with today. That debt is still there. We have started to try and pay. This government has started to try and pay. But you know what it's like when you have to come up with that kind of money? $20+ million to pay for 2 acres of land or thereabouts. Abandoned property. And that's what they did. acquired people land left, right, and they not pay 1 cent to the people. That now is left for us to try and clear up. When we got in some of the lands where we can, we gave back people because we don't understand why they took the people land to start with. Some that did have a legitimate purpose, we have tried to pay off for it. Those are the issues we've had to deal with. So sometimes when I hear them talk, and they start to pretend like there's some paragons of virtue, and I said, but we have a history. I'm not talking Nancy's story. I'm not talking what somebody might have said. I'm talking about what is documented. Do you know that under the St. Kitts Nevis Constitution, the Nevis Island government has the ability to raise taxes, to spend money, to do all of that. And that's why we have our annual budget. But under the Constitution, the accounts of the NIA have to be audited. Well, that would seem logical and sensible. Because if you don't have an audit, you don't know who thieving from, who not thieving, who misappropriating, where money being spent, who's overspending. You don't know. That's what the audit is for. The Constitution, the highest law of the land, mandates that there be an audit. Do you know that between 2007, the first year fully of an NRP administration, until 2013, when they left office, that no audit was ever done or presented in the Nevis Island Assembly? That audit of the annual accounts has to be deposited by law every year. In that assembly, none was produced. 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 7. And only when we got back into government in 2013, we had to reconstruct to get the audit reports from back then put together. And then we made a commitment that we have kept to restore Nevis to constitutional propriety and rectitude. And on that basis, I am proud to say that starting with Vance Emery as the Premier and continuing with me, we have produced our accounts, our audited reports every year as required by law. It was a lawless government. A lawless government. I listened the other day to one of them, I can't remember who, say he talking about geothermal energy. I said, but why would they talk about geothermal energy? The effort in geothermal started in 2004. I was involved because at the time Vance Emery had asked me, who was then Premier, to get involved. And I was involved at no cost, might I add, because I wasn't being paid, as an advisor, if you will, a legal person assisting with the project. And they had a GeoCarib, a project funded by the OAS. It involved Dominica, St. Lucia, Guadeloupe, Martinique, St. Kitts Nevis. And the OAS had already decided that Nevis would be the pilot for the geothermal project. 2004, 20 years ago. The NRP got in 2006. And right away, they jumped into bed with a company called West Indies Power. We all know why. Because some of their operatives were involved with West Indies Power. This was Carrico Brinkum, one hand washing the next. West Indies Power had people involved who were connected deep inside the NRP. That's all right. That's what they did. That's what they did. That's what the history is. They got involved with West Indies Power and they started to have geothermal. Y'all remember one afternoon on a Friday there was a big party in Charlestown? They had an old pickup truck festoon. I thought it was Culturama. Come early. They had pom-pom girls and it looked like an NBA basketball game. These people were out in force. You know what they say? They were christening geothermal. It is the only time in the history of this country that they christened a picnic before the picnic barn. It was NRP. They christened geothermal in Charlestown. Only time in history that a child was christened before it was born. It was the Nevis Reformation Party. Christened geothermal before we had any geothermal. And then guess what happened? Guess what happened? They and West Indies Power fell out. You hear me? And when we got back into office in 2013, the very first thing that we had to do was fight a court case with West Indies Power, started by NRP against West Indies Power. We went to court to fight that case, and we eventually prevailed. And that is how we were able to get rid of West Indies Power out of geothermal for Nevis. We then had to go through a whole process of the project. So all of them want you to feel like, oh, CCM has this project and CCM been doing this and CCM is bad and CCM. But ask them what they did and how they mired the project in legal problems and difficulty that we had to extricate the island from. Because when they lost office in 2013, we met a court case already going on that they started against their friends, West Indies Power. That is the honest, unassailable truth of the matter. So when sometimes I hear them pontificating, and they're going on and they're saying all kinds of things. You had people getting government salary during NRP time. You know what their job was? They have their regular job, you know. But they were getting $5,000 and $6,000 a month to go on radio every morning and cost CCM. Y'all forget them shows, what they call? Some eating kind of show. Breakfast, lunch or dinner, I can't remember. Getting big money. Radio stations had big contracts. Their primary objective was to kill the CCM. But you see who God bless. No man curse. And here we are. Time and time and time again. When the people have been given the opportunity, the people have said, we prefer the concerned citizens movement. In 2007, against all odds, after Malcolm Gishard passed, I was thrown in at the deep end to run against Hensley Daniel for the federal seat that had been vacated by Malcolm's death. The federal seat in number 9 is a combination of St. John's and St. Paul's. The NRP held both. Roberto Elhansville Hector was the representative in St. Paul's. Hensley Daniel was the representative in St. John's. I came up against two of them because they held both seats at the local level. And I won by a landslide 30 votes. Y'all remember that election? Run, Mark, run, do this one for Malcolm. To this day, I always register my thanks to Yvonne Gishard, to Doc Gishard, to the family who embraced me and welcomed me. I never forget how Yvonne held my hand and led me to the stage. Run, Mark, run, do this one for Malcolm. That was where the comeback, if you will, of CCM started. July 27th, if I think I'm correct. Was it July? I think so. 2007. In 2010, I moved in the federal election from 30 votes to 140 votes against the same Hensley Daniel. Bang him a second time. And we were due local elections in 2011. And NRP panicked. They panicked. And they went and sought to engage in the worst form of illegality we have ever seen, where they disenfranchised people. 203 persons were removed from the voters list in St. John's. Overnight, their name gone, poof, taken off. All they had to do when they sat in their meetings, oh, that one there is a CCM, and they take off the name. Them then can't get out, and them a Guyanese, them a vote CCM, take off the name. That's what they did. I, in that election of 2011, saw Nivisions, Barn, Bread, Never Stringberry here cry tears because they could not vote in their own island. The land of their birth, they could not vote. They had their voters' ID valid, stating their place where to vote, their address. But when they went in to vote, they were told, your name ain't here. And they could not vote. And in that same line, I saw people who had never lived one day in Nevis, who were not born here, some of them from other areas on the island, voting right up here in St. John's in the line. And I saw them laughing at people, mocking people, because they felt that they had done what they needed to do. And to hell with you if you found yourself in that situation. When the vote was tallied, Alexis Jeffers won his seat in St. James. Despite the fact that the same thing happened over there, Alexis was able to prevail against Patrice Nisbet. Van Samre the warrior came through in Gingerland. I fell short in St. John's by 14 votes with 14 spoilt ballots. And we had the infamous Black Fox in Cox story that emerged, to the point where Calypsonians and all started to sing about it. And I decided that I'm going to court. I assembled my legal team. I brought the Silver Fox, Douglas Mendez from Trinidad. I brought my brother Dane Hamilton from Antigua. I brought my brother Keith Lake from Anguilla. The lawyers at Daniel Brantley. We assembled a team and we went to battle. And if you recall the numbers of people in the square coming out every day, some of them assisting, lifting the bankers' boxes full of files as we went to the court. And one after the other, disenfranchised, came on the stand to give their evidence that they had been removed without any hearing, without any process, without anything. Their sin, they say they support CCM. And when the judge who had been brought in as a special judge to hear the matter ruled, he declared Henry Daniel's victory null and void. And the seat in St. John's was vacated on the basis of illegality that occurred during that election cycle. Shame, odium, contempt had been brought on this island. Our democracy damaged, laying in tatters on the street by the NRP because they were trying to hold on to power at all cost. The very next day that Henry Daniels declared null and void, he became an advisor. Same salary, same work. Just declared by a court of law to be null and void. Came back the next day. Then they said they're going to appeal. In election matters, you only have one appeal, that is to the Court of Appeal. You cannot go to England, the Privy Council with that. By law, that is the final appeal, is to the Court of Appeal. They went up to the Court of Appeal, and all three judges in the Court of Appeal unanimously said null and void. What happened was a travesty. And so Parry, who said he was a skipper, he had to make a decision. Does he have a by-election in St. John's, or does he have a general election? Well, he decided he wanted a general election. But they had a lot of money. They were well-resourced. And so they thought they could swamp the CCM. But the CCM had something they did not have. We had the people with us. We had the people of Nevis, who have always been with us. They were with us. And we marched and we campaigned and we went to the highways and byways. We went to every nook and cranny, every hill and valley in this island. And when the votes were tallied, the Alexis Jeffers triumphed in St. James. I triumphed from them, semi-lose by 14 with 14 spoiled ballots. I win by 240, if memory serves. Van Samre, of course, came home as normal. By 2013, we had a new government. And we then, when we got into government, started to see the real level of destruction that had occurred in those 5 years and 18 null and void months of the NRP. I don't say these things because they give me any comfort. I say them because I'm ashamed. As a Nevisian, I'm ashamed that is what we were brought to by people whose lust for power was greater than their love of country and their love of Nevis. I was ashamed when I hear that law schools and law students are now reading the case, now famous, of Mark Brantley against Hensley Daniel and the supervisor of elections. I'm ashamed when I hear that the Court of Appeal unanimously, and so that has now become precedent for law students across the globe to look at, to see the shame and dishonor brought in our country by men and women whose only aim was lust for power. And yet, the people rejected them. 2013 rejected. 2015 rejected. 2017 rejected. 2020 rejected. 2022 August rejected. 2022 December rejected. Well, my God, how many times a woman must tell you she don't want you? How many times? Lord, honey, I love you long time. Boy, me no want you. Go sit down. How many times must the people of Nevis tell you them no want you? Over and over. That was the result. And yet they say they favor democracy. But they were inclined to disenfranchise people in their lust for power. They say they favor democracy, but they're on the airwaves talking about people must be shot and they want revolution and guns to change a government lawfully elected by the people of Nevis. So, what say you? What say you? The people of Nevis have spoken and spoken and spoken and spoken. Time and time and time and time again, they have said that they prefer the leadership of the Concerned Citizens Movement. And so, with all of that history, with the wisdom that has come, I have found myself in a position of being put here by God, because it's God who put me here. You know? I don't care what nobody say. God is who lifts up leaders and takes them down in His time, not in our time, in His time. And sometimes I wonder, what is my purpose? And my purpose is to lead this island to a difficult time as it is now. I led this island through COVID, and I believe that history will judge us as to what and how we did. But I am content in my own heart that we did an excellent job leading this island during COVID. And I didn't lead from the back, I led from the front. For 22 months, I did not take a salary from the Nevis Treasury. Not because I don't need the money, but I wanted to show to our people that I was leading from the front. And over that period of time, my colleagues in the cabinet took a pay cut themselves. We demonstrated leadership at the most difficult time. People could say what they want. Yes, we've had hurricanes. Yes, we've had financial challenges. Yes, we've had problems. But no premier of the island of Nevis has ever faced a global pandemic in the last 100 years, except this one. And for 2 years, this island was shut down. Yet, we paid our public servants on time. We paid them every month. We paid them in full. And we not only did that, we found resources wherever we could to incentivize our farmers to grow more food, to help our people, to beef up and improve the hospital, to buy new ambulances, to buy medication, to buy PPE, to do all that this pandemic needed and asked of us, we did, to keep our people safe. And so when we ask what is our purpose, and for what reason did God raise us up, it is because God in his wisdom understood that this island would encounter some serious times, and that serious times demanded serious attention from serious people. And CCM and its leadership as a party is a serious party with serious people, resolved and committed to the task, the very serious task of leading the island of Nevis. And so when we sat down with Prime Minister Joe and his cabinet on Monday, it was historic because we're seeking to create a platform, a framework for dialogue, an opportunity to engage with each other. Some may say it was tried already. But look at the effort. And you tell me, I don't want to tell you, you tell me what you thought was the result. The word that I would use to describe the engagement on Monday was genuine. If I were asked to use other words, I would say frank, fruitful. The camaraderie was there for all to see. And I thank Prime Minister Drew for making the effort. And we in Nevis are committed to working because our eye is on getting the best results for the country, for the people who live here. St. Kitts and Nevis must become the sustainable island state that the Prime Minister is talking about and that we are committed to here on the island of Nevis as well. The language is not mine. It is language from the government in St. Kitts, but it is language that we have been living. And the ethos of that language has been running through and coursing through our veins on the island of Nevis, that we have been working with this geothermal renewable energy, banning plastics, our recycling program for plastics, trying to protect our beaches. All of this effort that we have put in is demonstrative of our commitment to a sustainable island state. We're growing our economy in Nevis. We have more jobs than people who are willing to work, and so some people are doing 2 and 3 jobs. That's what the statistics tell us. Every day, I feel so blessed. We are seeing more and more jobs, businesses opening, jobs advertising. If you're not working in Nevis right now, it's because you don't want to work, or because you decide that you're going to stay home until you get exactly what you want to get. But jobs are available. I like to put up this thing on Facebook. I said jobs, jobs, jobs in Nevis. Available, and more are coming. We have not just opened 1 call center to replace the one that we lost. We now have 2 that we have opened, and we have interest from others that we are trying to talk to see how we can accommodate. In fact, if there's any investor out there, local investor, who wants to put up a building, just a shell, people are asking for space. That's the biggest problem in Nevis now. People want to set up businesses and don't have any space. So I say all that to say that we are moving in the right direction. And we have what we are calling a genuine partnership now between Nevis and St. Kitts. One where we are not talking about the politics. Some people may find it strange, but I'm going to say it tonight. I have never discussed any politics with Prime Minister Drew. Prime Minister Drew is Labour. I'm CCM. I have never said to Prime Minister Drew, oh, I am offering to help you politically, or I want you to help me politically. Prime Minister Drew won in St. Kitts on his own, and I won in Nevis on my own. And you hear what I say? God is who raises up and takes on. So God raised him up and put him where he is. And so the relationship is not based on politics. The relationship is based on a commitment, a shared commitment to the people of the country, to say, let us move St. Kitts and Nevis forward. Let us leave it better than we met it. And that's where we are, and that's what we're trying to do. And there's some out there who dislike it. They despise it every day. They say something because they want us to be at war. And I said to the people of Nevis, what will be achieved? When I have gone to war in the past, war was necessary because of how we were being treated. And I'm not going to resile from that. The evidence is clear. And then when we formed an alliance in Team Unity, and I realized that the leadership of Team Unity was more concerned about undermining its members than it was about governance, I said, I'm done. I'm done with that. And the people of Nevis agreed with me, because in the elections of 2022, they said, Mark Brantley, CCM, the same 3 seats you had from 2020, I'm going to give them back to you, because we believe you did the right thing. You armed yourself with the breastplate of righteousness, and you did what was necessary to bring a bad government which was going down the wrong road to an end. Now, CCM couldn't bring the government to an end, on its own. That's important, because they've gone around with a narrative to try and say that I am the one who brought down Team Unity. But I have said, if you want to blame me, that's okay, because I'm not going to resile from it. Team Unity in its configuration with Timothy Harris as the leader needed to come to an end, because where we were headed was a very dangerous place, and I have said so publicly. I did not have that realization when I got in. I thought that we were creating something magnificent for the benefit of the country. But you see, no matter how well designed the train is, if you have a driver who's not focused on the task at hand, and Timothy was so scared, so insecure, that was his focus. How could I undermine Mark? How could I undermine Sean? How could I undermine Pam? That was his focus. He was not focused on governance, on building. He was not focused on keeping the promise, as Pam later said. We agreed for 2 terms. I'm going to stay the 2 terms, do my best, and then move off the stage. No, he started scheming early o'clock. I'm writing a book, I'll document some of that, because he was assisted in that scheming by a lot of people, including people who were sitting next to me. Sitting next to me in the cabinet in Nevis. And others. They think I don't know. Fortunately, when I have said in my early career in politics that I'm in the trenches, people used to think it was a joke. No. I have friends in high and low places. And a lot of people have looked out for me over the years, and for that I'm truly grateful. A lot of people would call me and give me a little information. And it was useful and it served me well, because I was able to guard myself against some of the pitfalls that others tried to set. And here I am, and here we are. It is 2024. And we are committed with the same level of zeal, with the same level of vim, vigor, and vitality that we have always been committed to the welfare of the people of Nevis. Here's where we are. I'm speaking this way. There's no election looming. But I think it's important that people understand this journey that we have been on, and the importance of this journey. But I could not bring down Team Unity. You know why? Because in 2020, the people of St. Christopher and Nevis gave Team Unity 9 seats. 9. PAM had 4, PLP had 2, CCM had 3. We created history in Nevis in 2020 by winning all 3 seats. Clean sweep, never happened before for CCM. So you hear what I said? PAM had 4 seats. PLP had 2. CCM had 3. There are 11 seats in the National Parliament, so Labour had 2. Making up the government was PAM 4 plus PLP 2 plus CCM 3. 4 plus 2 plus 3 equals how much? 9. Okay. 9 minus 3 equal how much? 6. 6 is a majority of 11. I want to make the point that even if I and my colleagues, the Honorable Alexis Jefferson and the Honorable Eric Evelyn, had said that we are pulling out of Team Unity, the government could not have fallen. Because PLP with its 2 seats and PAM with its 4 seats could still have continued in government. See here all this thing about, oh, Mark bring down the government and Mark this and Mark that. I'm glad the government come down. I am not going to resile from that. Because when we saw what was going on, I said to the People's Action Movement, we can't continue on this path. It is now a matter of record. And I'm not going to resile from it. I tell them, let us change course. We cannot continue on the path that we are on because all the signs are there. The undermining of it is there. Could you imagine I'm sitting in a cabinet in St. Kitts with who I consider to be my colleagues, and from that same cabinet succor and support is being lent to the NRP Nevis, my opponents? Could you imagine what that was like? And when messages were sent to NRP in Nevis, and they were told they're not attacking me enough, I'm the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Aviation in the National Cabinet, and the leadership of the National Cabinet is saying the message to my opponents in Nevis, you need to attack him some more. You need to get at him. You're not doing enough. I attack the man, no. Lord, I attack the man some more. You're not doing enough, man. Get at him some more. And I am the leader of CCM, one of the parties in Team Unity, with the second most seats. Y'all must reflect on that. So I went to Pam. I said, Pam, listen, me ain't going on the road, you know. Because operatives of PLP were empowered for years to bash me every day on the internet. You think I don't know how that went? The orders came from on high. Go after him. Well, I was so happy because not only have I learned to ignore the noise, but Nevis people too. And the mistake that some in St. Kitts make is they feel that they can influence what happens in Nevis. Foolishness. That's why some joker came in there, they march by himself. Because they feel they could influence Nevisians. That they could just say, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. And Nevis people are going to jump up. Nevis people like laugh at people. I tell her so all the time. Nevisians like to laugh at people. So when you see that going on and going on and going on, I just sit back and smile. Because I know Nevis people like laugh at you. You come in the bar, you want to buy drinks, they're going to take your drink. You want to give them something, they're going to take it. But the minute you're gone out, they're going to say, watch he? Watch he? With the forwardness, come think he could give me a beer and ask me for my vote. That's so we Nevis people be. And I say it all the time. A lot of people in St. Kitts do not understand politics in Nevis because they do not understand the Nevisian mentality and the Nevisian person. They don't. And so when the attacks came from St. Kitts, they meant absolutely nothing. Them they were a rubber bullet. Because who in Nevis these foolish people could influence? Not a soul. But I recall going to the Prime Minister at the time. I said, Prime Minister, call off your people. Them it don't look good to see your people them attacking me as one of the leaders of Team Unity every day. Call them off. Them not hide. Them a come out plain. Oh, me can't tell them what to do. Me can't tell them. Oh, you want me to tell? I say, oh, you can't tell them what to do? Well, you feed them. Well, if you feed them and you can't tell them what to do, well, who can tell them what to do? That time up here in Nevis, you know, my supporters in Nevis wild, and I tell them no. So long as I'm a member of Team Unity, none of you should go on any rampage against these people. But it was plain. You think people didn't know people saw? But it was when Sean Richards, I heard him in an interview the other day, and Sean Richards said, he is who initiated. He came forward and corrected the narrative, because it is Sean. When Sean called and Sean said he done, I said, well, if Sean done, no Team Unity left. Because look at the maths again. Sean had the 4 seats. In Team Unity 2015 and Team Unity 2020, People's Action Movement held the balance of power because they had the 4 seats. If Sean and Pam had gone with Labour in 2015, that would have been the government. And Sean and Pam had gone with Labour in 2020, that would have been the government. They held the balance. So I couldn't bring down Team Unity the way people are suggesting, because even if I had left with my 3 seats, the government would still have stood. It was People's Action Movement that had to make the move. And when they make the move, I tell them, yes, I'm moving with you. You want me to stay for? I'm moving with you. And all of that could have been avoided if only we had people of principle. You see that thing called principle? It is in short supply in some people. Principle. And I'm pretty sure that in the wee hours, those small hours of the morning, that all of us have, when 4 o'clock come and the house is dark and quiet, and the only thing you have with you is your conscience. Not a soul else is there. Just you and your conscience. I am sure the top dog must say, Lord, if I only had a little principle, I would not today be a little chihuahua. I would have still been able to say, woof, woof, instead of, wee, ruff, ruff, because you would have had the strength of a top dog. No. Little peewee, little chihuahua. That's life. And that is why I'm saying to the people of Nevis, you see me here tonight? I'm speaking the way I'm speaking because I'm grateful. Because through thick and thin, you have never let me down. Never let me down. That is why as long as I have breath, I will always be grateful to Nevis and to the people of Nevis. And so you see me now, I'm now an elder statesman. My beard is now grey. And I'm seeking to serve for whatever time I have left to the best of my ability and to leave this island better than I met it. And so I want to thank Prime Minister. That's where I started. I believe it's a good opportunity, a good platform for dialogue. And we'll work together. We have some difficult issues to contend with. Fair share. What formula are we going to work out? Constitutional reform. How is this country going to look in the years ahead? How do we deal with becoming a sustainable island state? Big issues. But we are up to the task. We have the talent, we have the ability, we have the capacity, and most of all, we have the commitment, and we will get there one day. My soliloquy has been long tonight, and I don't know. I didn't drink any Red Bull or anything, but I'm feeling so empowered. It looks like every year I get older, I get stronger. Praise be to God. But I'm going to open the lines now. We have half an hour. So if you want to say something, call in, say it quick, and then let's go to the next caller. The numbers are 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Remember again, tomorrow at 10 a.m., the Honorable Eric Evelyn and the team from Tourism and Culture will have a joint press conference at the MGR Park, 10 o'clock. Some big announcements are going to be made. I ask you to go there or to tune in and be a part of that press conference. We have anybody holding yet? 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call. Now, while I wait for somebody to call, I will just continue to provide some updates to you. I'm very pleased at what I'm seeing in terms of jobs and job creation in the local economy. I'm delighted that our people are responding, that investors large and small are coming, and there is a lot more on the horizon. I feel in a very real sense that in 2019 we were on the cusp of having a breakout year. We thought that 2020 would be our time. I had taken the premiership in December of 2017. I'd had the year of 2018 to get accustomed to the rains. And 2019 we thought, in fact, if you reflect on our budget debates of 2019 as we prepared for the 2020 year, that we were predicting that we would do extremely well. Regrettably, COVID hit. Let's take this call though. Good evening, you're on the mark. Hello?
Hello.
Yes, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, Mark. Good evening.
Good evening to you.
How interested are you in putting the bridge from St. Kitts to Nevis?
Well, I think, caller, that the idea of a bridge is a fascinating idea. I think that it is one that will open up the economy of this country in a way that is we can't even imagine, because it will put now the entire country at our disposal. Right now, because of those 2 miles of water, we have some difficulty. Even for those who work on one island, live on the next, back and forth, if the oceans are rough, sometimes the boats have to be taken out, you can't go to work. So I think having a bridge is an idea that has come. It's a time that it be discussed, but I believe that it will require widespread public consultation to get the views of people, not just those at home, but those abroad too, to get their views on it. But I certainly feel that as an infrastructural project, it really could take us to the next level.
Are you going to start the process of getting the... Hello?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yeah, are you going to start the process in getting that done?
No, I'm not starting that process because I have a lot on my plate that I need to do. I want to ensure that this island gets to the geothermal energy that we have been promising. I want to ensure that our state-of-the-art hospital is finished. I have plans for some major infrastructural works such as the South Coast Road that we want to get to. And so I believe that our plate is full with some of those infrastructural projects. And in any event, that bridge cannot happen without there being agreement and consensus between the two islands, so the federal government and the NIA. It is my humble view that the federal government should take the lead on that project if there's the appetite for it in Bastia.
Okay, thank you.
You're most welcome. 25 minutes to go. We're taking your calls. 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers if you want to be a part of the show for the next 25 minutes. I did take an inordinate time to do my introduction, but I needed to say a few things, and I'm happy that you gave me the opportunity to do so. So if you want to call, these are the numbers to call. So I was saying, in terms of job creation, that I have been delighted at what I'm seeing in terms of the progress that is being made in that area, and I'm very happy at what I'm seeing. I'm also happy to see the level of interaction that is coming from the public. In fact, just last week, the lady who's normally my first caller, she always calls with a scripture. I hope she calls tonight if she's listening. But she's always there, every show, even when she travels. And she called in and she said that there were some difficulties in Charlestown. She said that she wasn't happy with the way the town was looking. And I noted it. And a concerned citizen, even before I could engage, got ahead of me and got involved. And I can tell you that on Sunday morning at 6 a.m., the fire department went out, and I got some photos and some videos, and I'm telling you that I have to thank the fire department. I thank that concerned citizen. Person tell me don't call the name, so I like to follow instructions. But I thank the fire department for coming out, because that's really not their job. They're really just trying to assist. But I'm grateful to them. But when I looked at the photos and I looked at the videos, I'm also tonight sounding the alarm and asking our people, please, for God's sake, do better. The number of plastic bottles and garbage that was lodged in those drains in town was simply astonishing. And that whole section there, when you come down, after you come down Happy Hill and you come down into town, that whole area by Verlin and by Bourgeois and that area there, it was horrible. I wasn't there, but I'm told the stench was horrible. And I'm asking our people, because when I look at the plastic bottles, the styrofoam, you know, the containers that they put food in, and our people are not disposing of these things in the right way. They're not putting them in the trash receptacles. They're dropping them on the road. And that, to my mind, is a question of our pride. That's what it comes down to. Our pride, because we should have such pride in our little island of Nevis that we not only don't do it when other people do it, we tell them, "Tal, not here. No, not here." We need to do better. And so I'm calling on our people again. Charlestown is such a beautiful historic space. Let's try to maintain it. Let's work together to ensure that the town of Charlestown remains pristine. That is important. And so I wanted to thank the fire department, thank that concerned citizen who intervened, and we are committed through the Ministry of Health to get a schedule that we will regularly work with the fire department to flush those drains in Charlestown. So we are going to commit to that to try and ensure that we don't have those problems popping up in the future. The Honorable Minister Brand is aware of some of the concerns in town, and he too has committed to doing what he does best, which is to look after St. Paul's and to ensure that the infrastructure in St. Paul's is second to none. So we can make that commitment that we won't abandon our efforts in that regard. And so I thank that caller, and I thank the response that we've had, especially the fire department and that concerned citizen. I'm truly grateful. Ladies and gentlemen, we have about 20 minutes left. Let's take this call. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Hi, good night, Mr. Brantley.
Good night to you.
Tonight?
Hello?
Good night, Mr. Brantley.
Good night to you. Good night to you.
And how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great.
Okay.
I like your sign in the background. Look back and you'll see it.
My sign in the background?
Yes.
Von Radio?
No, next one there.
What the next one say?
Look back and you can see it. Anyway.
Yes.
You talk for an hour and a half, you know, so normally when you're that long in your speech, you have to give extra time, eh? But I know you like to say the band has struck up and you have to go and so forth.
Yes.
So when you have those long speeches, you have to give overtime, okay?
To give overtime? Well, all right. Well, you on the air now. It's your time now.
Well, that's why I'm calling in, but I realize nobody calling in as well. Concerning the garbage, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying citizens don't litter, but it's not always citizens' fault because sometimes animals will knock over the bins as well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if the bins are full and I go and put a styrofoam container in the garbage, if I don't press it down and wind high, like we have some high wind down here in St. Kitts, it's gonna blow away. And as well as to where the garbage is concerned, sometimes you find when the dump truck come and the garbage men and ladies, because they have ladies that work on the garbage truck as well. And sometimes you find like if they like tilting over the drum or the bin, the garbage bin, sometimes you find if a plastic bag drop, they don't pick it up. Or sometimes if something is stuck in the garbage, they don't pull it out. They will just empty it over and what drop out. So if half the garbage drop out, go over into the truck and half stay in there and leave the half in the garbage can. So, we can't always blame citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Sometimes they have stray dogs, sometimes pigs, all kind of things. So it's not always citizens' fault. Okay?
Well, I certainly hear you and I understand what you're saying. But we ourselves, while I take your point, we need to do better. Because while
I'm not saying they don't do it, but
right.
It's not always citizens' fault.
Well, no, I'm accepting that, but I'm still saying that while it's not always our fault, for those occasions where it is our fault, we need to do better.
Yes.
And we are the ones, at the end of the day, animals and all those don't have our faculties. right? They don't have our ability to reason and think the way we reason and think. So we simply need to do the best that we can to ensure that we absolutely stop the littering. We need to get away from that. That's very important.
Yes.
All right?
All right.
Okay, thank you very much. We're taking your calls. We have about 14 minutes left. 869-469-1616 and 1700. Now, next Tuesday, which is the 30th of January, I have my first press conference for the year, and I'm asking you to join me. Well, let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good night, Mr. Brantley.
Good night to you. How are you?
I'm fine. I love the program.
Thank you so much.
Very good. I'm going to read from Galatians chapter 6 to the end. Let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teacheth in all good things. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in the due season we shall reap, if we not faint. As we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. I will end here. May God bless you and the Prime Minister and your government, and just may God bless you and guide you in whatever you're doing. You're going down the right road, okay?
Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm truly grateful for that and for your call. And we're taking calls. We have time. We go back to the phones and take this one. Good evening. You're on the mark.
Good evening, Honorable Premier. How are you doing?
Good evening to you. Good to hear your voice, brother. I'm well. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
Yes.
Now, Charleston is badly in need of a bus terminal.
Mm-hmm.
You see that area next to National Bank that are being used as a bus terminal? Trust me, it's only an accident waiting to happen. I recommend that old cotton house where the old custom house used to be. That would be an ideal place for a bus terminal. If you carry a bus terminal anywhere else, well, number one, it cannot go to where the old artisan village to be because of the cemetery, the cholera issue. You can't take it up in the bag. Where else are you going to take it? That same old cotton house in Charlestown, next to the Cotton Ground bus stop, is the ideal spot for it. So I recommend if you guys have that area earmarked for anything else, change it. That is my input tonight. I don't know if you have any questions for me.
No, I don't have any questions. I know the voice, and you have mentioned that to me time and time again, that you think that that's a good location. We'll have to see. The truth is that Charlestown is a very small space. It's a very quaint space. And there has been, just as you are advocating that that should be a bus terminal, there are others who have been advocating that we should have parts of Charlestown which are pedestrian only. And so rather than talking about bus terminals, they're suggesting that what we should have, they do these golf carts, for example, that can take people around town and try to have buses and all that drop off outside town and have other methodologies for people going back and forth insofar as the city center is concerned. What I have seen in a lot of countries, caller, is that they are in fact trying to move away from using scarce real estate for things like bus terminals, and instead what they're trying to do is to come up with innovative ways to move people in and out, especially in small spaces like Charlestown City Center. So I hear you. I believe that if we're going to do a bus terminal, then you're right, there's very few places that you can put it other than there, other than of course reclaiming some land, which is another option that we may eventually need to look at to see how we can expand Charlestown. But it is a matter that I think is going to be worthy of debate, maybe not immediately but in time. And so certainly your views have been consistent. As I said, you've shared those with me privately on a number of occasions, so I know where you stand on the matter.
Okay, but one more thing. I know we can look at what work for other countries, but what about what works for Nevis? It's okay to look at other countries, but we have to look at what works for us.
No, but you are saying it will work for Nevis. That is your view.
Yeah, but you were saying just now, other countries,
No, but caller, your view is that it will work for Nevis. That don't mean that somebody else may have a view and they say, no, I see something in St. Martin or something in New York that I think would work better.
So you don't be into other determines what's happening down there, especially by National Bank?
Well, of course I see what is happening, but that doesn't mean that we take what is the last available space in town to do a bus terminal. That is your view. That is what you would like to see. Is your view shared by the majority of Nevisians? I don't know. That's why I said we would need to have public discussions on the matter to determine what in fact is the best approach. That's all I'm telling you.
I will tell you something. When you waste time to have public consultation, the train done gone a long time.
Well, that is so.
Long time the train done gone.
But I'm sure you'll agree with me that because you say so or because I say so doesn't necessarily make it so. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I have learned many things need to be done. It's like, discussion. Sometimes something don't need discussion. It is there. People are in leadership for a certain reason to make certain decisions. It's not everything you go take to carry to meeting. You can be tugged here and tugged here at the end, and nothing will be done.
Okay, well.
You understand? Nothing will be done.
All right. Caller, I am always reminded that we live in a democracy. And while what you say is true, that leaders are there to lead, we also need to consult with our people, because sometimes we think we have a fabulous idea. But guess what? Nobody else thinks so. And you live in a democracy and you have to be willing to take on board that what you think is a great idea, that the majority of people don't think it's a great idea.
Every meeting we have to go in a country, we have to marvel and wonder what happened to our country. If we can't see something that will put us in awe. I have learned long time, this is my last point, I have learned as a politician, I'm not a politician, but I know, based on the feedback I've got, once you do something that will affect everybody, even a small project like a bus or ferry terminal, you're going to actually turn people's mind in a positive way towards, what the influence that they're being felt from the persons who are in leadership. It's simple things, and I think it's the big things only. You have to touch the areas where the traffic is, where people will see every day. And what is a better place than a bus terminal?
Okay.
Thank you.
Caller, I thank you very much. You're passionate about the bus terminal, but all I'm saying to you is in a democracy, you could also recognize that maybe others are not as passionate. Some other person might, for example, be passionate about the stadium at the Mondo track. Some person may be passionate about the hospital. Some may be passionate about geothermal. You have competing interests, and people are passionate about different things. The bus terminal is your project. That's what you want to see happen, and you've already found a site for it, and we understand that. But that is why I'm saying discussions are important, because it may not necessarily mean that everybody is in agreement with you. Let's go back to the phones.
Okay.
Good evening. Is there somebody else holding? Okay, sorry, caller. I didn't realize you were still on. I thought we had another call. We have 10 minutes left. We can take some more calls. 869-469. Let's go right back. Good evening. You're on the phone.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Brantley.
Yes, good evening to you.
A lady calling about the garbage. Mr. Brantley, the garbage truck comes around very early in the morning. When you get up and you see your drum fall down and the garbage man them do not pick up them on the ground, it is we duty to go and pick them up and clean up our area. So you can't, the lady can't say that if people is the garbage thing is not that about the people in fault. It's their own fault.
Mm-hmm.
On a Sunday morning around 6 o'clock, driving town, you see them bars and things in town and the garbage and them all there ground. You need to keep the surroundings clean. Number 2, that gentleman there talk about the thing there by in town. He must remember that Charlestown was not a town, it was a village. And most of the people then that are there in Charlestown is their own home and their own places. So you can't just go and put a bus stand and move the cotton ginnery and put it there. Then it's going to be too congested in town because you can't even walk in town carefully now. Even you on the sidewalk, a vehicle and person still hit you. I don't support it. I'm very sorry. Have a good evening.
Okay, well, caller, thank you very much. And, you know, it's interesting you call and you said what you said, because this is what I was trying to convey to my good friend. He's my good friend. I know him well. And he's passionate about this bus terminal, and he has to go in that spot. But you just call and you say you don't agree. Now, whose voice is more important, you or his? That's why I'm saying that when you live in a democracy, you must be always willing to accept that there could be other views which also must be taken into account before you take decisions as to which direction you move in. And that's why consultation is important. I agree not everything you could consult on, but it's important. Let's go back to the phones and take a few more calls. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good night, Mr. Brantley.
Yes, good evening.
I'm not supportive of the... Good evening.
Yes, you're on the air.
I'm not supportive of the bus terminal in Charlestown. I think we need to go outside Charlestown for the bus terminal. That will make Charlestown too congested. You know, as the lady said, we wouldn't have space to walk in town if we have the bus terminal in town. So I don't support that idea. We'll have to go outside Charlestown if we need a bus terminal.
Okay.
That is my input.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for your input. And we continue to take your calls. Let's go back to the phones. We have somebody else holding. Let's try this one. Good evening, caller. You're on the mark.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Bradley.
Good evening.
Yeah, I call concerning the garbage problem. Yeah, I used to live in the Virgin Islands, right? And I see the men when they come around to pick up the garbage, they have a shovel, and if anything fall on the ground, they take them up. But you know, I have seen here when they come around, it's like they are hurrying to get from one place to the next. Well, nothing is wrong with that, but at least do a proper job. You know, and I live up here at Hard Times, and I have noticed over the past month there's a little gut not too far from me, and people are deliberately passing and dumping the garbage over the gut. Pizza box, the styrofoam box where they buy with the chicken, they're just dumping them all along the side of the road. I mean, something needs to be done about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it can be addressed. I mean, this is something that I see been happening. I see people come. I mean, they have the lobster, whatever they eat, and the bag, and they just dump them over the gut. And you know, lobster refuse it carry a very high scent.
Yes.
You know, I mean, this is little Nevis. I mean, this just some time ago. I mean, I met some people from, I think they were from England or someplace, and they were telling me how clean Nevis is. But some people, they just don't take pride in their little country. You can't just be passing and just dumping your things over. I mean, on the side of the road, and I mean, these are things in garbage bags. These are not anything that the wind blow away or animals pull down.
You still there, caller?
Yes, I'm done.
Yeah, thank you, caller. I mean, you're right, because I think it comes from our national pride. The reality of it is that people who are proud of their country, are proud of their surroundings, won't litter. And you know, I have on occasions been driving and you see people just throw something out the window of the cars they drive. And yes, people say, well, the government should do more and the government should enforce, and that is true. But people go and they dump the refrigerator and all that in the guts and things of that nature. I mean, why would people do that? There's a dump here and it's not expensive to dump refuse. But they do it anyway, and I think that is what we need to inculcate: national pride, patriotism, being proud of this island, this place called Nevis, which, oh my God, is so abundantly blessed. That's what we have to drill into our people's heads, so that, as I said, they themselves, when they see somebody do it, must bawl out and tell them, not you, pick that up. That's not acceptable here. That's where we need to get to. Let's go back to the phones. We have 5 minutes left. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening, Honorable Brantley.
Good evening to you. We have 5 minutes.
Yes, a couple of quick things. I am pleased to see that the federal government came over to Nevis to meet and lobbied with the Nevis Island government. And I heard in the news a number of important topics which was discussed and commitments was made. We hope that these commitments would be lived up to, and we will see some action from these commitments and pledges and promises. What we would love to see now is the federal opposition is going to meet and lobby and have a delegation and discussions on a number of topics and subjects like that, because the way forward is unity, not the one that break up, but unity of all parties, all members, and also the citizens. So that's a question. That's a question to you. Is we later in a few weeks, a few months down the road, going to see the federal opposition traveling to Nevis and discussing a number of topics and subjects of the way forward and the united of a federal unity opposition.
So the people in opposition were in government and they had team unity and that breakup. But you want them now to unite in opposition?
Well, if you couldn't do it in government, maybe all will work together in opposition.
Okay.
Better.
All right. I hear you.
The last thing,
yes,
with the garbage, our people is too nasty, Mr. Brantley. The citizens of our federation is too nasty. We, all of us see it. They pass and they throw all kind of things out the vehicle. You get people to clean up the sides of the road, clean the grass, whatever, the bushes, whatever, and people are passing, walking, drinking a soda bottle, they drop it. Right here in St. Kitts, Mr. Brantley, I do clean the area where I live. I don't wait for parks and beaches and so. I clean 2 parks up here, I clean the side of the roads, I clean over the drains, and all it belongs to government. And I don't ask for anything, I don't take anything. And Mr. Brantley, as soon as I done clean it, you walk down there in 2 hours, 3 hours after, the amount of soda bottles, pizza boxes, Dominoes, KFC, all kind of things thrown where you just done clean up for totally free, Mr. Brantley.
Alright, caller, we're out of time, we have to leave that there. Alright, can we give this caller 30 seconds? We have one person waiting. Caller, are you there? Hello? Okay, that caller is gone. The banner struck up. The person who controls the controls here has said, time for us to go. Ladies and gentlemen, I am absolutely delighted for all, and thanks to all who called and made themselves a part of the show. I am truly, truly grateful. Thank you very much. I was a little long tonight, but as I said, I had some things to say. I am grateful to you for tuning in and for being a part of the show. For our online audience, thank you. This show is rebroadcast tomorrow at 1 p.m. right here on Vaughan Radio. And remember, tomorrow at 10 a.m., we have the press conference being hosted by the Honorable Eric Evelyn, our Deputy Premier, and there'll be some big announcements for Culturama 50. So please tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. for that press conference. And then next week, Tuesday, I hope to have my January press conference as I continue my commitment to have an engagement with the press every month. Tomorrow as well, I have my one-on-ones as I resume that for the new year. That's our show. Thank you. Good night, and may God bless you.
and opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Nevis Broadcasting Company